Hello and welcome to PPC Live, the podcast. I'm your host, Anu, the founder of PPC Live. And if you're used to hearing from PPC experts about how to ensure that we're keeping up with the ever-changing landscape, don't worry, you're still in the right place. Every week, I'm speaking to a different PPC expert about an F-up they've made. Yeah, you don't really get that from other podcasts, do you? And we talk about what a mistake they've made, how they turned it around, what the client reaction was. Because yes, a lot of these are with founders and heads of departments that are agencies and have clients. And yeah, we share also what's been disappointing, who was really in the way of the progress of just the learning, and the people who are really supportive. Today, I have the delight of speaking to Chloe Stockton, who is from Journey Further. And you might have heard of Journey Further because they have supported PPC Live for a long time, especially from our ambassador, Scott Carruthers. Yeah, Chloe today talks about the importance of actually scheduling, even when you feel that you have time to set that big sale campaign live, on the day of they're supposed to go live. It's still best to schedule. And we talk all about why that is important. So yeah, let's go speak to Chloe. Hello, Chloe. Welcome to PPC Live, the podcast.
Hi, Anu. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Chloe is doing double brave work here. Not only just like every one of my guests who is brave enough to speak about their mistake. That's one tick of being brave that she's doing. But also she told this very lovely story, which I totally understand that happened. I asked one of our ambassadors, Scott Carruthers from Journey Further. I was like, Scott, Women's History Month, we need some fantastic brave women to come and speak. And apparently he asked and nobody put their hand up, as I'm not surprised. But Chloe went, no, I'm gonna go with it. So thank you, Chloe, so much for joining us today. And honestly, our listeners are very lovely. No one's gonna DM you and barraging you with a bunch of questions afterwards. So just be comfortable and just share the story you want to share. But before we get into that, Chloe and I were chatting earlier on and telling me about how she joined Journey Further actually in the middle of COVID, like the whole COVID lockdown. But she has been doing paid search since 2017. Please, actually, sorry, this is one bit I didn't say earlier. What's your title? So what's your level at?
I'm a paid search manager. So we have paid search specialist, paid search manager, senior manager, kind of team leader. So yeah, I'm kind of just sat there in the middle.
Yeah. So you lead a team, or as in you manage the team, or you're more like a account manager?
More of an account manager, yeah.
All right, cool. And I'd also loved Chloe's story about it, because she was saying that this might be generic, but you think everyone will understand the whole bit of you go into paid search, especially compared to SEO, where SEO can take them, God bless all the hard work that SEO does. It can take 3 months for you to actually see the effect of your work. But with paid search, we write an ad and boom, 2 minutes later, you press that button and Google shows you if you have enough, the competition is not too bad. If you have enough bids, you've set your bid strategies properly, you can see your ad straight away. And that's really what drew her into the industry. And she's been doing it with Journey Further for 5 years now. So yeah, definitely someone who is at that stage that can give us amazing lessons as to what not to do in terms of the industry, the story. Fun fact, that's my also a lovely bit of this introduction. Tell us actually, Chloe, you go ahead. What's your fun fact?
My fun fact is that I am a volunteer football coach, and I've been doing that for I think 3.5 years now. So yeah, I do play, but I'm getting on a little bit. So yeah, I get a few injuries. So it's quite nice just to kind of see that next generation coming through. And yeah, I said to Anu before, the kids that I coach are so much better than what I was when I was a kid. I mean, I used to think when I was 11, 12 that I was good. I could play with the boys and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got girls in our team who would probably play against boys and beat them. So yeah, it's really nice to see that future generation coming through.
Yeah, no, amazing. And we're actually seeing about how I've been really impressed with the national team, the female national team, the Lions, and how honestly they've been having a better run than the male team. So it's very it's very funny to see how there's all that chant of it's coming home, and then you watch the match and it doesn't come home. But for the women's team, they brought several of those trophies home. So they really made the nation proud. And that will then help with the investment, as you were saying, with like kits and making sure that they have like, everything, all the support that they need. So yeah, it's really great to see those kind of things. But anyway, let's move on to what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about PPC mistakes. Chloe's going to bravely share one of the stories about, what happened, what she learned, and how to make sure that we're not going to make that mistake again, right? So, we've done this for 30, 40 episodes. I hope you're seeing all your mistakes being a lot less and that you're growing your confidence in how to approach these different strategies. And this is another story that will do that. Just that for you. So yeah, Chloe, take it away. What's the F up you'd like to share with us today?
Cool. So yeah, I had to try obviously think of something that wasn't like minor, because I feel like everyone makes little mistakes and you can just brush them over. It's fine. But yeah, I had to go back to Black Friday 2019, I think it was, Cyber Monday specifically. So obviously we'd had like a fairly successful Black Friday itself. The weekend was good from a performance point of view. And then, yeah, come Cyber Monday, I think I realised I hadn't kind of created specific ads and like scheduled them to go live. So, yeah, Cyber Monday morning, I was frantically just trying to manually switch them over. And I basically realised later on in the day that I'd actually forgot to press post on the ads. Obviously, I was using Google Ads Editor like I kind of do with any of those kind of like ad building tasks. And then, yeah, I think I realised like in the afternoon, because I was like checking GA, like, obviously back in the day when you could check like real-time revenue and life was good. And like, I think the client at some point emailed like during the day to say like, what's up with performance? Like, why are we not getting like any revenue through brand? And then, yeah, I was just like looking in the account, and I think that's when I realised had my editor window still open. I opened it up and I was like, everything was still in bold, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't press pause. Post even. So yeah, that was fun. And yeah, I think like my reaction, like when I realised, it wasn't like a massive panic, but it was that kind of like feeling of dread that you get. And obviously that was like back in the day when we were in the office every day, obviously like pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just like sat there at my desk, just try and remain calm.
Yeah.
Because obviously I didn't want to bring like any attention to myself.
Okay.
So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like kind of like immediate. As soon as I realised, I was like, okay, I'll post them now. And then we can just deal with whatever we need to deal with after.
Okay. I mean, you have very brilliantly, I appreciate this, also even answered, because there's always the question of how did you feel? You've already touched on that. There was that feeling of dread. You saw that book bold. There's also the question of who saw it first. So if I remember, you said it was a client that spotted it before you did.
I think the client didn't necessarily spot the mistake itself, but obviously they flagged that performance was looking a little bit slow, especially after the weekend, obviously with it being Cyber Monday. I can't remember the exact details of the sale or anything, because obviously it was a long time ago. I think that's what made me kind of look into it. And then, that's when I realised.
Okay. So who did you come clean to? Did you like go, they make your manager aware this is what has gone wrong? How did the conversation then go ahead with the client or someone internal?
Yeah, so from what I can remember, because at that agency we had account managers, so we didn't really have that much direct contact with the client themselves, which at times was a blessing. So I think I just mentioned it to him, and then they obviously then kind of like helped. We just basically just wrote an email together, I think, from what I can remember.
Yeah.
That's how it went down. And then, we just obviously like emphasised with the client, like, firstly, this is never going to happen again. The ads are now live.
Yeah.
And I think, so I can't remember like exact details in terms of like how it potentially impacted them, but I think it was one of those clients that didn't necessarily have like a lot of brand competition. So if anyone was coming through brand and didn't see an ad, we'd hope that they would have gone through organic anyway. So from like a business point of view, it shouldn't really have had too much of an impact, but at the same time, it's still one of those mistakes. Like, you think, especially on like a really important weekend, you think that it could have been worse.
Yes. So, and this was something that you started working on in terms of like timelines of when you did the action, how many days till the client found out. So were you like trying to turn everything, put the new ads on the Monday, or was it on the Friday?
So it was on the Monday. So yeah, so obviously the ad switchover was happening on the Monday because I think the
Yeah.
offer changed. So obviously we had
Yeah.
to change the offer and then change like any mentions of Black Friday to Cyber Monday.
Yeah.
And then yeah, it all happened like on that day.
Yeah.
So I think because obviously we realised pretty quickly and it's not like it's something that dragged on for a few days. I
No.
think that also helped. Like obviously we
Yes.
responded pretty quickly. And I think the client did obviously appreciate that. And to be honest, like they weren't like angry or anything with us.
No. Okay.
I think they just, in a nice way, just said, just make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it was fine. It's one of those things that just, like, obviously, I'll come onto this in a bit, but it's like, it just sticks with you and
Yeah.
it just means like you just triple, if you're doing anything like this, obviously, you might change a process,
Yes.
but it just means like you're just going to triple check everything more than
Yeah.
once just to make sure that,
Yeah.
you don't make that mistake again.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like even for a lesson, because what I also like, digging in with guests is sometimes you think to yourself, if I had done XYZ before, that wouldn't have happened. What are some things that you think to yourself, like this is things that, you should or shouldn't have done in a certain way to ensure that that doesn't happen again?
I should have just made sure that I had everything scheduled.
Yeah.
And like obviously that ad's labeled up correctly. So that's kind of obviously what I've done ever since. Like pre that agency, I didn't even use labels, which is a
Mm,
bit wild. When I think about it now, like I would struggle if labels weren't a thing,
yeah.
just because of it's just really easy to label up your ads and just
Yeah.
pause them and like enable them whenever you need to. So yeah, like labels and scheduling. Like I've got a client now who have a promo every month.
Mm,
So it's making sure like it starts on a Monday. Well, it runs Monday to Sunday, like 1 week every month. So then, like obviously on the Thursday or the Friday before that starting, I'll make sure all of the ads are set up. They're all labeled correctly. All the BAU ads are labeled correctly.
yeah.
And then I sit there and make sure everything gets scheduled. So
Yeah.
like BAU pause, promo live,
Yeah.
and then like all of those rules are set up well in
Yeah.
advance so that it just means that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I even think then, I think just like ads being labeled correctly or just making sure you set your rules up correctly. Like there's been times where I've triple checked the rules just to make sure I've used label as the identifier. I think I did do it. I think I did once again a little while ago where I think to enable ads, I forgot to add label
Uh-huh.
as the identifier. So for
Yeah.
about an hour in the morning, every ad that was in the account that was paused, just re-enabled. But
Yeah.
again, I realized pretty quickly and just paused it again. Told the client they were
Yeah.
fine. They were fine about it.
Okay.
So yeah, again, that's kind of another thing where it's just if you're setting up rules, just triple check you've set
Yeah.
everything up correctly. Because yeah, it's one of those things if you don't notice it, if you don't know quickly, you could have Christmas ads live and you're in July.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to be very careful with that. And in terms of like, to be fair, one of the things that I did catch about that story is actually needing to come in on the Monday, because I'd imagine that they gave you this sales schedule. They're like, this is what this is the Black Friday discount amount, and then this is going to be the Monday one. So are you saying when in terms of scheduling, it's best to have scheduled it, the week before, that kind of thing? Is that something kind of thing you would have done differently?
Yeah, I think I definitely would have spent because obviously at the time I had like 2 or 3 e-commerce clients who were all doing Black Friday, but that was at a
Right.
time where like we just did Black Friday on
Mm,
Black Friday. We didn't do
mm,
it for like the whole of November. But yeah, I definitely could have spent more time in the early part of that week
yeah.
getting all of my schedules and all of my rules set up in advance just to
Yeah.
try and make because those 3 days back then could be quite stressful and there could
Yeah.
be like a lot going on and
Yeah.
that's when you might miss things or forget to do things. So yeah, just definitely making sure that if you do have, whether it's Black Friday, whether it's any kind of promo period or just anything where you're switching ads over,
Mm,
if they need
yeah.
to be done on like a certain day or certain messaging needs to be shown, then yeah, just actually take the time to make sure everything's set up because that avoids mistakes being made basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think with paid search managers, especially with AI coming on and us wanting to be like in control. There's probably like the bad habit for like, oh, it's going to be a quick task. I'm just going to do it as it's happening. And actually using those schedules can be very important and just allows you to not stress exactly
Yeah.
on that day of doing the thing. Yes, it might not be a hard task, but like on the day of, use it to double check, because if you're using the same day to do the task and double check again, you'll still miss something. At least if you schedule something and then the day of, you double check, because especially with anything automated, don't just set it and forget it. You might set a schedule up and you might set it at the wrong time. There's so many times I've done something is supposed to go at 9 a.m., but I've mistakenly put 9 p.m. So like then, but because I scheduled it, the morning of, all my brain is doing, okay, 9:05. Let me look for my ad. And at 9:05, I don't see my ad. I immediately go to what I scheduled and then I set the right, and I'm like, oh my God, I put the right time on. But if I was thinking of doing everything on that same day, you'll miss so much more. So yeah, use those automators, use those schedules to definitely happen. In terms of like your internal team, so you said the client was like, okay, the internal team, your manager, was he okay as well? Was there a little bit of like annoyance? Because I also feel like with mistakes, some managers, it's also down to a manager to actually help you through it and not actually beat you, beat you through it and do the whole guilt trip. So do you feel like you had that support in terms of when you open up about the mistake?
Yeah, 100%. And it's not necessarily ironic, but I can kind of vaguely remember a conversation of being told about similar mistakes being made
Sure.
by them,
Yeah.
which obviously, because I hadn't really, so again, I've made little ones because again, I was still quite junior at the time. And I think it was probably like my first major one, which I think is why it's stuck out in my brain and it's kind of like why I wanted to speak about it today. And then that immediately just made it kind of clear to me. It's like, well, everyone makes mistakes. It's just how you deal with it. Like, there's
Yeah.
no point in like dwelling on it.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of gave me some support and was just like, well,
Yeah.
if you need any advice on like how to avoid doing this in the future, then it's
Yeah.
fine to come and chat. So
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's a good manager for sure. That's a good manager. That's how things should be dealt with. Also, now let's say someone is going through this kind of mistake and the client has gone to them. What the heck? We're supposed to have, this amount of revenue coming through and strong revenue on our best performing campaigns, but we're not seeing anything. And then they see that they've not set a campaign live. What's your advice to someone going through this issue right now?
I think it's kind of like it's okay to make mistakes. I know I've said that a few times, but yeah, I think it's if anything that they just make you become or they help you become better at your job because they make you think a little bit more. You could think you're the best PPC analyst out there, but if you make a mistake, it kind of grounds you a little bit, makes you
Yeah.
just remind you that you're not actually invincible. But yeah, I think as long as you learn from it and endeavor to just make sure that you don't make the same mistake twice,
Yeah.
because I think it's if you do make the same mistake like twice, maybe even three times, and that's where you probably think, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I need to change my process. But at the same time, again, that can help you become better at your job because I feel like depending on what the process is, like I feel like you should always like change things up a little bit because
Yeah.
that's when if you do the same thing over and over and over again, you
Mm.
get so used to it again, you might miss a step. So yeah, I think it's one of them. Like, just remember that mistakes don't really shape your career. It's just not how it happens. Like if that was the case, then I probably would have stopped doing PPC when I
Me
made
too.
this mistake. Because I would have been like, oh, I can't face it. But yeah, I think as long as you're being honest, like with the client, especially if it's a big mistake, don't hide behind it because like clients obviously value that honesty and transparency.
Yeah.
Whether it's a mistake, whether it's you've overspent by X amount on a certain
Yeah.
month, through not pulling back when you needed to, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think as long as you're honest, transparent, and just learn from your mistakes, then you should be grand.
Absolutely. Look, you know what? I'm not even. We're not going to delve into that because something that I also really appreciate with like my guests that come on, I'm almost making them drag out a story that they've comfortably put in the past, and it might bring some PTSD of like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to do that. But like, yeah, that's the thing. There's so many things we used to do, and that's absolutely fine as long as you learn from it and you've moved on from it. it's great. So yeah, we're gonna leave that story there. You've given us some really great takeaways, things to remember, to be like, yeah, be honest. Don't and these kind of mistakes do not make your career. It doesn't mean your career is coming to an end. Just be honest about things and learn. And yeah, if you have good support and good managers around you, yeah, it just becomes a little blip in your career, and it makes for the best learnings, really. So don't be afraid of them. All right, let's now change gears now and look at, clients that your journey further have won, and, new accounts that you've been put on, and maybe you need to do an audit, or someone else has done an audit and now you need to change things. What are some of like the big mistakes, or like even just surprising mistakes for you that you've seen that's still happening that you've needed to change quickly in terms of like strategies for clients?
I've got loads. I think there's a few like obvious ones. I will land on one specific one in a minute, but yeah, I think sometimes like we might get accounts and like brand and non-brand are in the same campaign.
Mm,
And it could be like a fairly well-known brand, so like non-brand's not getting any volume whatsoever.
yeah.
That that's surprisingly we do still see that quite often. But I think like one of the issues I had when I took on a new client almost 3 years ago now
Mm,
was, to my knowledge, the previous agency didn't have full Google Merchant Center access.
okay.
So, and they're a retail client.
Wow. Okay.
So
Oy.
basically like when we got them, we were trying to like get the access so we could like audit the feed. And that took like a few weeks because on the client side, they didn't know who actually had the access. And then when we eventually did get it, it was like, I just reviewed the feed and I was like, that's a quick win. That's a quick win. That's a quick win. Like there was no like GTINs in there. The titles were very unoptimized.
Yeah.
There was just a lot in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that's a little bit wild how like you can get an e-commerce client and the feed have not really been touched for as long as, well, obviously you can't really see when changes were made, but it just looks like the feed's been untouched basically. So yeah, that's pretty much like the main one.
Wow. Yeah, feed's not been optimized. I mean, I've never really needed to optimize like feed, and even managing accounts has been a long time, but I'm always like, that's very quick win. That's something that just makes sense. So if you've had an agency who has not touched your feed in terms of optimizing, yeah, you need to fire them. Literally, I'm like that is a basic one for sure. How about in terms of like AI, our world of AI, whether we like it or not, we have to use AI. Even like bid strategy, AI is being used, even if you know it or not. But like, what are the ways that you feel like people are using it wrong? Or maybe even like people are not taking as much advantage of what it could do either.
I think in terms of, I'll probably take that the second
Okay.
angle in terms of like not using it as much as what they maybe could.
Yeah.
I think there's maybe like a couple of groups out there who don't just want to rely on it to do the job,
Yeah.
but then at the same time, it's there, utilize it. So
Mm.
like I've used it to help me write ad copy when I'm
Okay.
struggling for inspiration. I don't necessarily use exactly what it spits out
Yeah.
because there might be reasons why I can't use exactly what it's spat out.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I'm struggling for inspiration, I use it. I've used it to help kind of devise a like audience strategy for demand gen.
Hmm.
For like I work on a pet food brand, and
Yeah.
in terms of like puppy and kitten, and just thinking, even though like I've got cats, I've got a dog, both of which I've had when they were puppies and kittens.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to think about the things that I was probably searching for at the time to like
Hmm.
create custom audiences, for example. But it's just again thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And that's obviously where AI can obviously like help with that. And yeah, it basically helped me put together like an audience strategy. Or again, it gave me inspiration to think a little bit more. And I was like, okay, I can take that idea, I can add to it. And then yeah, I think in terms of mistakes, I feel like I can maybe like flip what I said like around like the ad copy, for example, where
Yeah.
people might just get lazy,
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
in like their landing page, for example, and say, give me 5 headlines, a
Yeah.
couple of descriptions, and then just take that for what it is without really kind of thinking about it or thinking why that they might want to use that as a headline.
Yeah.
I think like don't always trust it as well.
Mm.
It's easy to ask it a question or ask it for something, but then kind of try and maybe like verify that information as well. Because
Yeah.
I think there's probably, again, I haven't done it, but I think you could ask it something and then you could just copy and paste it, send that to a client without really reading it and verifying it yourself.
Yeah.
But I think that might be like some mistakes that people make in terms
Yeah.
of just making sure that that is something that you can trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Also, something new I started asking, and I apologize that this might be a brand new question I didn't give you preparation for, but
Okay.
this is like very much in terms of like things that a manager might be testing. Or because I write for Search Engine Land, I'm always spitting out this latest updates. And one of the latest one in terms of features is AI Max. Have you guys been testing it yet?
Yeah, I've been testing it across all of my accounts.
Nice.
Still don't. I'm very much like on the fence about it in
Right.
terms of like, so like for one of my accounts, we can't use the find a URL expansion element of it. And then I'm like, well, what's actually, and then one of the experiments, like it seems to be performing well, but it's not necessarily search terms coming through AI Max specifically. So I'm like, what's actually driving the uplift in performance?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, definitely been testing it. And I think it's something that obviously a lot of us at Journey Further have been testing as well. I think it is quite split. Some people have seen some good results off the back of it. Some are still not so sure. But I think, again, it's the importance, just continue testing it and just see, like, is it not working because your campaign structure or your ad group structure needs to be different?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, again, that's where we can like leverage the help of Google
Yeah.
as well, just to see if there's anything else that we can do a little bit better, just to see if we can get it to work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's very brave those who are deciding that they're going to be one of the first to do it. And I mean, it's been a year now, over a year, just over a year. Someone of guy Mike Ryan, who's works for Smart E-commerce, and he's one of those guys that really like writes about it and writes about e-commerce and all the stuff that e-commerce can do, or like Google Ad you can do through like you with retail, clients. And that's why I decided to ask about it, because I was like, yeah, about retail campaigns. You edited shopping feeds. Yeah, AMI Max may be something that you're testing. And yeah, they're saying it's very mixed signals at the moment. So yeah, I think you're pretty much in the same fruit with everybody. And it's really all the most of Google ads and all the different features, PMAX, demand gen. For some brands it will work, for some brands it will not work. Right?
Yeah. Like we
So
were talking about this internally I think it was last Thursday, just about how when smart bidding first became a thing and
yeah.
everyone was just like didn't want to touch it with a barge pole, and then smart shopping, and then fast forward a few years,
Yeah.
PMAX, everyone's a bit
Yeah.
like, what's this? And then broad match, obviously like broad match back in the
Mm.
day, again,
Ugh.
if that was in an account that I was auditing, like without broad match modifiers, I'd just be like,
Yeah.
I'd take a little look at the search terms just because I'd just be interested to see what like rubbish it was matching
Yeah.
to. But again, it's just one of those things like AI has been increasingly becoming part of what we do as
Mhm.
Google Ads specialists over
Yeah.
the last 5, 6, maybe even 7 years.
Yeah.
And I think over time we've just learned how to adapt, but also like learn how to test it as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah, I think it doesn't always work.
No.
Like it doesn't always work for every client, but I think that, again, that's why we test these things just to see what does work and what doesn't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's about testing. And we're not I was speaking to another this guy Brad Geddes is like, and I was like, what's one thing PPCers will not admit, and it's the fact that admitting that we don't know the answer, because it's like our saying is that we always need to be testing, we're always testing, and I'm like, yeah, we don't necessarily admit, we don't want to admit that we can make a mistake, or we're not going to know the right thing to do for a client, because I'd rather say that, oh, we're testing. We're saying that we don't know. We're not going to admit that we're saying we don't know, but we're always testing, and we're always advising that we should be testing. And I think that's still always going to be a great advice to give. Chloe, thank you so much. You've given us so much advice, shared your great story, and talked about, mistakes that are avoidable, I'd actually even say, and you talk about mistakes that other people are making. Guys, that's avoidable stuff. Optimize your feed. That's an easy one. Use AI, but don't give it all the controls. And even things like, what was it? Double check any scheduling automation. Yeah, use automation, use AI, but double check it. Be the human that always puts it in place and gives it the right guardrails to use. So last question before we leave you to head today, Chloe. If your PPC career were a movie, what would the title be?
So it would be called Manual Labour.
Okay.
And like the description, again, this isn't me, this is like a Gemini job.
Love it.
Where it's kind of like the description it gave me, like I'll say it word for word because I think it's quite funny. It said the plot is a nostalgic look back at the good old days of PPC. So like I obviously first started doing PPC in like 2017. The film features long sweeping shots of massive Excel spreadsheets and the heartbreaking moment of manual bid chains accidentally tanked a client's weekend performance. So it's kind of like back in the day where everything was like quite manual, and then it kind of like goes to fast forward through like all the automation and stuff like that. So
Say the title again. Sorry.
Manual Labour.
Manual labor. Yeah, manual labor. I feel like they should be like, if we get you on the show again, it would be like, there needs to be the part 2 of like that, the machine rises kind of thing. Manual labor, but the machine has risen and taken control of the kinds. Oh, bless. That is so cool. Thank you so much, Chloe, for sharing that. If I know you're not necessarily a social media person, but if you're ever going to share something about what you're testing, where can people hear from you?
So it will be Chloe Stockton on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's pretty much the only place that I would post about work. Yeah.
Awesome. No, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Chloe. And we look forward to hearing about any learnings that you have to share with us.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Anu. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Chloe, for that very useful insight and that transparent honesty about that mistake that happened and, the lesson that you learned from it and how you are very much like on top of the whole, using AI, using it for inspiration, using it for ad campaigns, but also the warning about not overusing it and making sure that we are looking at those outputs before we implement it. Very, very important, I definitely think. So for all the information, the full transcript of that fantastic chat, just go to podcast.ppc.live for the full show notes, the links that she shared, and any resources that you might need. So for terms of our PPC Live events updates, unfortunately, by the time you're listening to this, you've probably missed out on the early bird sale, but still go to ppc.live. There might be some treats there for you. We definitely have speakers like Jack Wilmore and Amina Demiri, who's based in Brighton as well. And by now, we've probably announced our third surprise speaker, but as I'm recording this, I'm not too sure who that is yet. We'll definitely have a third speaker for you by now for that makes up for a fantastic lineup of speakers at Brighton. So go to ppc.live. It's the cheapest that you're going to get for such a great value. That price doesn't reflect the value that it's going to give. Seriously, it doesn't reflect, how much we actually provided these events, 3 fantastic talks, food, drinks, and this time pretty much at the seaside. We're going to have fantastic views. Of course, we want you to focus on our speakers, but who doesn't want the backdrop of the beach as you're listening to fantastic talks about paid search? So hope you're going to join us on April 29th. I'll go to ppc.live for your tickets. And before I leave you, I'm also delighted to share that I'm taking on coaching clients. If anyone just has issues in terms of asking for that promotion, being confident about, going for that job that you're not sure you're perfectly suited for, let's have a chat about it, even if it's just about getting ahead in the industry. If you feel like you've just stagnated at a certain point, really would love to help you build that skills of your confidence to ensure that you're continuing to going after the thing that you deserve and that you've earned. So if you go to themarketinganu.com, you can book a 15-minute free discovery call so that we know exactly what to do, what to chat to you about, and what to discuss, and what kind of confidence we need to build in you. So I hope you've enjoyed the show, and I look forward to bringing more PPC F-ups and triumphs next week. Thank you. Bye.